really, you just want to play. It's just that social environment. It's just a network of gamers.
Yeah, definitely.
That come from
and now that we're able to support 64 players on Gen 4, like I've always been a console gamer when it comes to FPSs, but I love my Battlefield, so I always have to sit down on a PC to get the most out of it with 64 players. But now I feel like I can come home at the end of the day, sit on a couch, and play with a ton of my friends in different squads and really get the most out of the game, that big, epic Battlefield moment every single time. And that's something that I really think is going to come together, especially on the map like this, on such a large map with the naval warfare and the amphibious vehicles. I think it's really going to start to come together.
Yeah, so also, as we just kind of take a look here, again, you're a level designer here for Battlefield 4. What are some of the different things that we can say that you have influences on directly here to this map in particular?
Well, I would say that the multiplayer team has been working really hard on this map to make sure that it highlights the amphibious warfare while still allowing infantry and other vehicles to play a big part. So if you want to run around with a gun and want to shoot, you still have cover, you're still able to take down buildings with big missiles, you're still able to experience destruction, take cover, and get from island to island and achieve your objective and work with your team. If you're more of like a vehicle type person, you can experience the boats, but you can't necessarily completely dominate with just the boats. So you need both sides of that coin. Alternatively, you also have the helicopter, which seems to be a pretty popular choice on this map, I've noticed, where you're able to get from island to island very quickly while still being able to keep a good eye on what's going on with the different bases.
So one of the things that I have to ask as being a competitive gamer, I really always look at the contrast between the player and his background. Are these types of things really, are these taken into consideration as well?
Yeah, so we give the players all this option when it comes to the type of camouflage that they want to use. And we have a type of camouflage in the game, which is one of my favorites, which is the class of camouflage called dynamic. And that will actually change with your environment. So if you're in a forest environment, it'll be more green. If you're in a naval environment, it'll be blue. It'll be suited to whatever level you're on, and it still has all the cool shapes, all the cool designs that you're used to seeing in all the other camouflages. So now, your Eastern turtle also comes in a dynamic turtle.
That's what I like to hear. Again, some of the other different quick camos that I really think that are awesome that I have to mention, like we've talked about numerous times now, the Eastern turtle, still one of my top favorites. The PLA Digital is another one that I'm a huge fan of.
That one's pretty cool. My favorite is the Relish, actually.
The Relish?
Yeah, it's a type of digital camo, but it looks really cool the way that the tiny little dots work together. And it kind of makes the guns look really modern, but still have this sort of classic forest feel.
We're kind of taking a look here and seeing that the bomb...
So here you can see a lot of our new vegetation that we've really focused on this time with Battlefield 4. We really wanted to revamp a lot of our core systems that we're known for. The water tech really came in, and that's been wonderful to see growing and lending a strong support to this map. But of course we needed to look at our famous terrain system, making sure that that's still the top of the line, and making sure that that works with our vegetation. So if you look, you can see individual blades of leaves and grass, and all of our destruction on the trees is much more dynamic and much more detailed now than ever before. So you can tell that when you're running into a tree with a helicopter or a vehicle, it's going to destroy and fall apart the way that you'd expect.
Right, so each one of these trees right here as well, I've seen them myself getting basically sawed off by a machine gun.
I actually saw a player run into a tree with an ATV, one of the four-wheel drives there, and the tree fell over and crushed an enemy player. It was really cool.
Yeah, come on now, you're pulling my leg. That can't happen.
It was really neat, and I think that the way that the collision works on the trees is a much more intuitive way than it was in Battlefield 3. Now it makes more sense what happens. Here we see somebody in the helicopter, which it's really great to see people be able to use the helicopter in this big open map because it features such a lush environment while still providing cover for people in the areas like the jungle and like the trenches.
Really, no, and I agree with every point that you just made, because whenever I try to fly around here, it's difficult to actually spot the enemy through all of the different trees that are there. Some of the, I mean, they really do provide cover. Now, they provide visual cover.
Exactly,
so
which is why it makes for a great gameplay mechanic. You can't necessarily see them as well, but if you're friend spots them, if they're on the map, then you'll be able to know where they are. You can kind of guess, but it's a strategic sort of soft cover, and that's the same with a lot of our new pieces of destruction. Like we have a lot of more specific wooden destruction pieces and concrete with micro destruction. So the micro destruction chips away slowly as you're behind it. So you find that when you're taking cover behind objects and somebody's still shooting at you, eventually this cover isn't so useful anymore and you're still taking damage. So you better run and find something new. And it's a really interesting way to see people constantly moving around the map, never quite knowing if they're entirely safe or not.
There's a PLA digital on that attack boat over there. But also, one of the things I want to ask you a question about is just the thought process that goes
Oh,
into...
nice, roadkill.
Oh, wow.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That was awesome.
So when we look at some of the other maps, on Paracel Storm, the weather changes. It gets darker, as we're about to see here in just a moment. You see that initial lightning strike. Then you start to see the storm really start to pick up. You start to see the actual trees as well start to move here.
I think one of the strengths that we are noticing from the Frostbite 3 engine is the way that we can dynamically affect the lighting, the weather, all of the systems that are tied in together. And that's something that we've only been able to achieve really in a strong way using Frostbite 3. We've started here with this map wanting to show this going from a pristine environment to a very stormy one, but it doesn't always happen that way on all maps or all modes. Sometimes it goes from something that's darker to a sunrise. Sometimes it has, again, like floods or some sort of rain effect, and sometimes it has the opposite. It clears up after a time and the sun comes out and you feel like it's a much calmer experience. This time we wanted to show, again, the waves getting larger, so you really felt like that was a strategic element.
Again, I'll just kind of show you how deep these waves really get here. I'll try to find the bottom of one of these waves.
And that's one of the things, these waves are synced on the servers so that every single player sees exactly the same waves in the same places, which is what makes it such a great gameplay element. And that's something that, again, we haven't had until Frostbite 3. And that's something that I think is definitely pushing the industry as a whole forward into trying to get everything to work together so that all the players can really use all these elements to their advantage.
Yeah, so again, one of the things we actually saw the initial, whenever this this turbine actually got struck by lightning, and you can see that now things are starting to pick up. There's also this weak support point that you can hit as well to kind of trigger the event. Mostly though, it's also here, for this case, it's also timed right now. They're still in the thought process of which way you want to go, whether it's a timed event or a
Yes,
triggered
exactly.
event.
And when this boat crashes, you get an AA gun, which is able to target helicopters in the area or other air vehicles, which really lends a lot of support on these South Islands, which are very difficult to hold. There's not a lot of cover on them except for these small buildings, and even those are destructible, so you never really know if you're going to be safe there, if you're going to be able to hold an island securely. Oh, and you can see here the ship has broken free of the turbine and is now headed straight for the island, which I remember I was watching a player and he was running around on this island yesterday and he didn't notice the ship until just about now. There's a really big foghorn that goes off and he looked over and he was shaking. He was standing there and he was shaking and just running away from this as fast as possible. And as soon as he got free, he survived the entire thing and he saw this ship come in, crash, destroy this building. Look at these stories in the building just crumbling like that. It's really great how much detail they've been able to get in.
Or Bravo
oh, man.
15. Oh, sad day for you.
Oh, man.
She's stuck right there on the edge.
Maybe he's not as big a fan of the destruction anymore.
I wonder if he would accept a revive.
Right there in that position? I don't know, maybe. It's a pretty hot spot right now. It's pretty neat seeing this boat come in right when players are starting to really use this space, because that means that it's really being taken advantage of strategically.
So you mentioned that you have the AA, the anti-air gun that you can use. Now, is that automated or is that controlled by a player?
It is automated. It will automatically shoot at enemies in a certain radius, but then if they're spotted, it's time to spot people that you see and make sure that they're tagged. It'll make a big difference for not only the rest of your teammates, but also the AA gun, which can help turn the tides of battle.
Well, it definitely gives a lot of support there to control that point and maintain that point. So if I'm holding on to C, we're talking in terms of conquest, but if I'm holding on to C and whenever I lose it, and the other team, the opposition, the other team actually acquires C point, then now it's their anti-air.
Exactly. So that's why, again, C is a great point for the rest of the South Islands, because it helps you not only control that one island, but the rest of the area, which kind of then becomes your base for taking over the other islands. One of the things that you're seeing here is that the waves are starting to get a lot larger. Even between the islands, you're starting to see that boats can get a height advantage between different areas. So if you're an infantry on land at this point, an area that you might have been able to take cover in before isn't quite as safe now, because the boats are rising up and down with the waves and then able to take you out. It's really cool, because that's more of a timed event as the wave rises and falls, but it's also only available when the weather is at its peak.
Yeah, so one of the things that we kind of look at too here is, we'll get away here for just a moment. This area right here on Paracel's Storm, I think this is just flooded with attack boats.
This is true. I usually am one of them.
And I have been too. That's where I actually, I showed it to Frederick, but I went 16-0 before I had to hop back up on the stream.
Only 16-0?
When I had to hop back on the stream.
I see.
So I probably could have kept going, and but again, I was just holding down this point, and then whenever there was a call that was made that I needed to take out another point, I'd shift over there, and then I'd come right back to this.
Yeah, it's really easy to be able to maneuver your way around these smaller islands here while still keeping a good eye on most of the portion of the large map. That's one of the things that you'll notice with this map, is that with the water and the amphibious vehicles, you're able to sort of connect the islands in a much faster way. So if somebody has the bomb, it might not always be best to, say, swim through the water. You might want to run to a point where there's a water vehicle, use that, and then drop it off at the next island.
Let's take a look and see who's playing very effective Alpha 4 right now.
Oh, let's go take a look at that.
We are with Alpha 4. That's
yes,
why
well, if you have the helicopter on this map, you're bound to do pretty well.
And if you're going to fly well, there's the same things that I've seen as nice pickup.
Oh, it looks like he's about to take the bomb and take it to the next island.
Wow.
That's pretty exciting.
So this is a very educated player as well, immediately hopping out of the heli to pick up the bomb. Again, for those that were wondering, can you pick up a bomb whenever you're within a vehicle? And right here you see that the answer is no. It said Alpha 4 hopped out of the helicopter to be able to pick up that bomb.
Exactly. There is quite a trade-off here between being the bomb carrier and wanting some support from your team, but it doesn't look like this guy needs it right now. He looks like he can take on both the bomb site and still get back to the helicopter in order to protect this base.
Oh, no.
Oh, but his helicopter's been taken out, so that's not really going to be possible.
As now he's trying to be able to stay alive a little bit longer, sitting here right now at 8 health. He does have some teammates to help him out, but the bomb will explode. That's where he actually got taken out. The bomb timer is not that long, but for a really good purpose.
If you look back to the vegetation right now, you'll be able to see that it's being blown by the wind, all by the same wind forces. So the wind is actually a new dynamic system that we've been working with to affect both the particles for the weather, the waves, in what direction they're crashing, and these waves that are crashing up against the rocks, as well as the leaves in all of the vegetation and the grass. Everything that you see is all moving with the same wind force. And that's also the thing that drives the entire lighting and weather change.
It's just something else. There really is nothing that you can say. Everything, I mean, the visuals speak for themselves.
We've also made a big upgrade to our lighting environments, in that in Battlefield 3 we had extremely accurate lighting and shaders, and that was one of the things that we wanted to focus on, making sure that spaces felt real with real sense of volume and shading. And now we've even upped that even more, making sure that surfaces are reflecting and making sure that they have all the properties that you expect. So now it's a much more realistic model. And I think that's one of the other ways that we're really pushing the industry and making sure that we stay at the top of our game as artists, is that we need to make sure that we have this great tech, but we're also using it in a smart way. Oh man.
He just got taken out.
Yeah.
His dog tags have been removed.
There's a really neat new animation in this game for a counter knife mechanic, which I think is really cool. Now
I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah,
because I don't like getting counterattacked.
I think I remember I counter-knifed you once.
I don't want to know about this. It wasn't a good moment.